The last thing I remembered was the suffocating scent of ozone and a flash of light so absolute, it felt like the universe was being born and dying in the same instant. Then, nothing, a void. Now, sensation is slowly seeping back into my limbs, a pins and needles tingling that feels less like waking up and more like being reassembled, molecule by painful molecule. My eyes flutter open, but the world is a blurry smear of soft, shifting colors. I try to lift my head, but an unseen force holds me down, a gentle but unyielding pressure against my forehead, my chest, my limbs. Panic, cold and sharp, lances through the fog in my mind. Where the hell am I? I'm lying on a surface that's cool and smooth against my back like polished stone. The air is different, thick with the scent of damp earth, night-blooming flowers, and something else. Something faintly electric, like the air after a thunderstorm. I blink, trying to force my vision to clear, and the world slowly resolves into focus. I'm in a vast cavern, or maybe a room designed to look like one. Towering structures that look like a cross between crystalline formations and living trees spiral towards a ceiling lost in shadow, all of it bathed in a soft internal luminescence. And that's when I see her. She's leaning over me, her face just inches from mine. And she is, without a doubt, the most beautiful and terrifying creature I have ever seen. She's tall, impossibly so, with skin the color of a deep twilight sky, a mesmerizing shade of indigo. Swirling patterns of light, like captured nebulae, drift across her skin, pulsing with a gentle, hypnotic rhythm. Her eyes are huge, the color of amethysts, and they're fixed on me with an intensity that strips me bare. It's not a look of malice or anger. It's a look of pure, unadulterated scientific curiosity. It's the same look I get when I'm peering into a microscope at a new form of cellular life. It's the look of a being trying to decide the best way to dissect you. She holds a small, gleaming instrument in her long, elegant fingers, and a low hum emanates from it as she scans it over my body. Her lips, a darker shade of blue, are pursed in concentration. She is a goddess, a demon, an alien. The word pops into my head, stark and undeniable. I'm not in my lab. I'm not on Earth, the teleporter. It didn't just malfunction. It shattered my reality. I try to speak, to scream, but my throat is dry. My tongue a leaden weight in my mouth. A strangled gasp is all that escapes. Her gaze snaps from my chest to my eyes. The light patterns on her skin flicker, shifting from a slow, methodical pulse to a more rapid, erratic dance. She leans closer, her amethyst eyes widening slightly. She says something, a series of melodic clicking sounds that flow like liquid music. It's incomprehensible, but the tone is inquisitive. I just stare back, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. This is it. This is how it ends. Not in a blaze of scientific glory, but as a specimen on some alien's table. She seems to sense my terror. Her expression softens, or at least I think it does. It's hard to read the face of a creature with no discernible eyebrows. She sets her instrument aside and taps a small device on her wrist. A soft chime echoes in the cavernous room. She speaks again, and this time the words are not her own. They are English, a strange, synthesized version of it, but perfectly understandable. Your vital signs are erratic. Adrenaline and cortisol levels are dangerously elevated. Are you in distress? Distress? I want to laugh. I want to sob. I'm strapped to a table, light years from home, being examined by a glowing blue alien, and she's asking if I'm in distress. Where am I? I manage to croak, my voice raspy. You are on Zorgon 9, the synthesized voice replies, translating her musical words. You materialized in a state of molecular instability in the Central Forest. My team brought you here to my research facility. Brought me here? I repeat, the panic giving way to a surge of anger. You mean abducted me? The patterns on her skin shift to a cool, steady blue, a semantic distinction. You were unconscious, and your biological signature was unlike anything in our planetary database. My primary function as a xenobiologist is to study, catalog, and understand. You are an anomaly, a fascinating one. I am Ka, xenobiologist. Of course, my luck. I don't get captured by warriors or explorers. I get captured by the intergalactic equivalent of a grad student with a dissection kit. My name is Jasper, I say, testing the restraints again. They don't budge. And I'm not an anomaly, I'm a human. From Earth. And I'd very much like to be let go. Ka tilts her head, a gesture that seems universally curious. Earth. Your language was not in our primary database, but the translator was able to construct a syntax model from your subconscious neural patterns. A remarkably inefficient language, but functional. As for releasing you, that would be scientifically irresponsible. Your physiology is remarkable. Your cellular structure, your lack of integrated bioluminescence, the bizarre keratinous filaments that sprout from your cranium. It's called hair, I snap, and you have no right to keep me here. Right? The word seems to puzzle her. Rights are a social construct. I operate on the principles of scientific discovery. The potential knowledge you represent is immeasurable. To release you without a thorough study would be a dereliction of my duty to my people. Her logic is so cold, so absolute. It's more terrifying than any weapon. I'm not a person to her. I'm data. I'm a walking, talking science project. Look, Ka, I say, trying a different tack, forcing a calmness I don't feel. I understand. I'm a scientist too, a biologist. I get the curiosity, but I am a sentient being. I have a life, a home. If you let me go, I can try to fix my equipment. Maybe we can establish a proper first contact. An exchange of knowledge, willingly. A new pattern of light, a bright shimmering silver, dances across her cheekbones. An exchange? Intriguing. You propose a collaboration? Something like that, I say, seizing the opportunity. But it has to be on my terms. As an equal, not as a specimen on a slab. Ka considers this for a long moment, her amethyst eyes seeming to peer right through me, weighing and measuring every word. The silver light on her skin intensifies. Your proposal has merit, the translator finally says. A willing subject would provide more accurate data on sociological and psychological responses. Very well, Jasper of Earth. I will release you from the stasis field. She taps her wrist device, and the pressure on my body vanishes. I gasp, pushing myself up into a sitting position, my muscles screaming in protest. I swing my legs over the side of the slab, my feet touching the cool floor. I'm free. I look at Ka, who is watching me with that same unnerving analytical gaze. But, she adds, her voice soft but firm, the silver light on her skin solidifying into a pattern that looks almost like a warning. Understand this. This facility is my domain. You are here under my care and my supervision. Any attempt to leave, any act of aggression, will be met with immediate and efficient countermeasures. We have an agreement, human. Do not make me regret it. I nod, my mouth too dry to speak. I'm off the slab, but I am in no way free. I'm a lab rat who's just been upgraded to a slightly larger, more decorative cage. And my beautiful, terrifying, glowing blue warden is watching my every move. The days that followed blurred into a strange routine, a surreal dance of prisoner and researcher, subject and scientist. Ka was true to her word. I was given quarters, a small but comfortable room carved out of the same living crystal as the rest of the facility. The walls pulsed with a soft, ambient light that mimicked a day-night cycle, and a nutrient paste dispenser provided sustenance that was bland but surprisingly nourishing. My freedom was limited to the xenobiology wing, a sprawling complex of laboratories, observatories, and terrariums filled with the most bizarre and wonderful flora and fauna I could have ever imagined. It was a biologist's paradise and a prisoner's gilded cage. My teleporter, or what was left of it, had been moved to one of the labs. It was a mangled wreck of scorched metal and fried circuits. Repairing it seemed impossible, but it was my only hope, the focal point of my existence on this strange, beautiful world. It was during one of my futile attempts to coax a diagnostic from the dead machine that I met Zix. He entered the lab without a sound, a towering Zorgonian male whose bioluminescent patterns were a sharp, jagged crimson in contrast to Ka's fluid blues and silvers. He was older, his features more severe, and he looked at me with an expression of undisguised contempt. "The anomaly," he said, his synthesized voice a harsh rasp. "Ka indulges your delusion of collaboration, I see. She was always too sentimental." "And you are?" I asked, refusing to be intimidated. "Dr. Zix, head of xenomorphic anatomy. I believe a far more direct approach to studying you is warranted. Your biology is a puzzle, and the quickest way to solve a puzzle is to take it apart piece by piece." The threat was unmistakable. This was the Zorgonian who wanted to dissect me. Ka seems to think a more Cooperative approach will yield better results, I countered, my hand tightening around a heavy wrench. Zix's crimson patterns pulsed. Ka's fascination with your primitive emotional responses is a weakness. She sees a potential partner. I see a potential pathogen. A biological contaminant that must be understood and then sterilized. He took a step closer and I braced myself. But just then, Ka swept into the lab, her own patterns flaring a brilliant, protective sapphire. Zix, is there a purpose to your visit, or are you merely attempting to intimidate my research subject? Her voice was calm, but the light flashing across her skin told a different story. Zix turned to her, his crimson patterns clashing with her sapphire. Your subject is a variable you cannot control, Ka. It has already begun to affect your judgment. Your reports lack their usual detachment. My reports are more comprehensive than ever, Ka retorted.
I am studying the full spectrum of this creature's being, not just the mechanics of its flesh.
Now, if you are finished, Jasper and I have work to do. Zix held her gaze for a moment longer, then gave a curt nod and strode out of the lab, his crimson glow leaving a faint, menacing trail in the air. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Thanks, I said. He seems pleasant. Zix values data over all else, Ka said, her patterns softening back to their usual gentle pulse. He sees life as a series of equations to be solved. He cannot comprehend what he cannot quantify. She turned her attention to the teleporter. You have made no progress. It wasn't a question. It's hard to make progress when the primary power conduit is fused to the quantum manifold, I grumbled. The technology is just beyond me without the right tools. Perhaps I can be of assistance, she said. Our understanding of quantum mechanics is quite advanced. However, my assistance comes with a price. Of course it does, I sighed. What do you want? Blood sample? Tissue biopsy? Her patterns flickered with something I was beginning to recognize as amusement. Something far more complex. I want you to teach me, not about your biology, but about your culture, your emotions. Zix believes they are a contamination. I hypothesize they are simply another set of biological responses, as quantifiable as any other. I propose a series of controlled experiments. Experiments? I asked, wary. Yes, she said, her amethyst eyes gleaming. For example, my research indicates that human pair bonding rituals often begin with a shared activity, seemingly for no practical purpose. An activity you call a date? I stared at her. The most brilliant, intimidating, and dangerously curious alien I'd ever met was asking me out. For science. You want to go on a date with me? I asked, a slow smile spreading across my face. As a scientific experiment? Ka's bioluminescence shifted to a soft, inquisitive lavender. Precisely.
In exchange for my help in fabricating a new power conduit for your device, you will accompany me to the geothermal gardens and explain the neurochemical and sociological purpose of this date ritual.
Is this arrangement acceptable? I looked from the wrecked teleporter to the glowing goddess in front of me. Trapped or not, this was a research opportunity I couldn't pass up. Acceptable? I said, laughing. Ka, for science. I'd be delighted. Our first date was, by any human standard, an absolute disaster. And yet it was the most fascinating evening of my life. The geothermal gardens were a breathtaking spectacle. A vast cavern where superheated water erupted from the ground in shimmering geysers, feeding pools of mineral-rich water that glowed with every color of the rainbow. Strange crystalline flowers bloomed in the steam, chiming softly as they condensed the vapor on their petals. Ka was a vision, her natural bioluminescence amplified by the glowing pools, making her look like a being woven from starlight and dusk. She, however, was not there to admire the scenery. She had a datapad, and she was taking meticulous notes. So, she began, her synthesized voice cutting through the ambient hum of the gardens. This ritual of hand-holding. You initiated it as we entered the gardens. My initial analysis indicates it serves no practical purpose. It does not increase locomotive efficiency, nor does it aid in environmental navigation. What is its function? We were standing by a turquoise pool, and I was holding her long, cool hand in mine. It felt strange, but not unpleasant. It's not really for a function, I tried to explain. It's about connection. Shared touch releases oxytocin in the human brain. It promotes feelings of trust, comfort, bonding. Fascinating, she murmured, tapping notes onto her pad with her free hand. A biochemically induced social cohesion. And is this sensation pleasant for you? Yes, I said, looking at our joined hands. It is. Is it for you? She paused her note-taking, her amethyst eyes studying our hands as if they were a foreign species. The lavender glow of her skin deepened. The contact registers as a non-threatening tactile sensation. The heat transfer from your skin is noticeable. I suppose I can see the appeal from a purely sensory perspective. High praise indeed. We continued our walk, with me trying to explain concepts like romance, beauty, and fun, while Ka tried to deconstruct them into biological imperatives and neurochemical reactions. It was frustrating, hilarious, and utterly captivating. I found myself talking about my life on Earth, my passion for science, my family, my dreams. And she, in turn, began to share things about Zorgon 9, about her own relentless drive for knowledge, about the societal pressures of a world that valued logic above all else. For the first time, I felt a flicker of something beyond our scientist-subject dynamic. I was seeing the person behind the researcher. The moment of truth came when we stopped by a waterfall of shimmering golden water. The light was playing across her features, and the patterns on her skin were swirling in a slow, mesmerizing dance I'd never seen before. A soft, rose gold hue. You know, I said softly, on Earth, a moment like this, it's considered romantic. Romantic, she repeated, the word sounding alien in her synthesized voice. Adjective, conducive to or characterized by the expression of love. Something like that, I said. It's when you feel a deep connection to the person you're with and the setting just makes it more intense. Her rose gold patterns pulsed gently. And what is the customary human behavior during such a romantic moment? My heart started beating a little faster. This was it. The ultimate experiment. Well, I said, my voice a little shaky. Usually, something like this. I released her hand and, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, to protest, to vaporize me with some alien device, I reached up and gently cupped her cheek. Her skin was smooth and surprisingly warm. The rose gold light flared brightly under my touch. I leaned in. Her amethyst eyes were wide, her lips slightly parted. The air between us crackled with a tension that had nothing to do with science. It was pure, unquantifiable, terrifying chemistry. I closed my eyes and pressed my lips to hers. For a single heart-stopping second, there was nothing, no reaction. Then her lips softened, responding with a hesitant curiosity. It was soft, tentative, and it sent a jolt through my entire system, a warmth spreading through my chest that had nothing to do with geothermal vents. A dazzling light show erupted across her skin, a supernova of rose gold and silver that was so bright I could see it through my closed eyelids. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathless. I opened my eyes, expecting to see, I don't know what I expected. Confusion? Disgust? A data pad to document the experience? Instead, her eyes were shining, and her bioluminescent patterns were swirling with an intensity I had never seen. It was beautiful, chaotic, and utterly overwhelming. Fascinating, she breathed, her real melodic voice a soft whisper beneath the translator. Her hand came up to touch her own lips, her expression one of profound, world-shattering confusion. The fluid exchange, the sudden spike in neurochemicals. My bioluminescent regulators are malfunctioning. They're not malfunctioning, Ka, I whispered, my thumb gently tracing the glowing patterns on her cheek. I think they're feeling. Her response to the kiss was not what I expected. There was no scientific analysis, no detached note-taking. Instead, she seemed to short-circuit. Her patterns flickered erratically between a dozen brilliant colors, and she stumbled back, her hand still pressed to her lips. She stared at me, her wide amethyst eyes a swirling mix of shock, confusion, and something else I couldn't yet name. It was fear. For the first time since I'd arrived, the unflappable Dr. Ka looked genuinely afraid. She turned and fled, disappearing into the steam-filled gardens without another word, leaving me alone with the chiming flowers and the echo of a kiss that had just changed everything. The aftermath was a wall of clinical, professional silence. Ka avoided being alone with me, our interactions confined to public labs and always in the presence of other Zorgonians. She threw herself into fabricating the new power conduit for my teleporter with a ferocious intensity, working for days without rest. She was building the means of my departure and, by extension, a wall between us. The more progress she made, the more my heart ached. Zix, on the other hand, was ever present, his crimson glow a constant predatory shadow. He watched us, his sharp eyes missing nothing. He saw the new distance between Ka and me, and he seemed to feed on it, his satisfaction a palpable force in the air. He'd often corner me, making thinly veiled threats about the inevitable conclusion of Ka's flawed study. He was waiting for her to fail, so he could step in and pick up the pieces. Literally. The breaking point came about a week after the kiss. Ka had finished the power conduit, a beautiful, intricate piece of Zorgonian engineering that hummed with latent energy. She presented it to me in the main lab, her expression unreadable, her patterns a muted, controlled blue. "The fabrication is complete," the translator stated flatly. "Integration with your device should be straightforward." "Ka, thank you," I said, my voice thick with unspoken emotions. "But we need to talk about what happened in the gardens." "There is nothing to discuss," she replied, refusing to meet my eyes. "The experiment yielded anomalous, inconclusive data. It is best if we return to our original arrangement, scientist and subject." "Subject," I repeated, the word stinging. "After everything we've shared, you still see me as a subject?" "It is what you are," she said, her voice strained. And that's when Zix chose to make his move. He strode into the lab, flanked by two imposing Zorgonian security officers. His crimson patterns were practically vibrating with malevolent glee. "Council Head Ka," he said, his voice dripping with false formality. "I apologize for the interruption, but the High Council has reviewed your latest reports, or rather the lack thereof. They have also reviewed my supplementary findings regarding the contaminants' volatile effect on your judgment." Ka's head snapped up, her patterns flaring a defensive sapphire. "My judgment is not in question, Zix, isn't it?" Zix countered, taking a step forward. "You have withheld crucial data. You have allowed your personal curiosity to compromise this entire project. The Council agrees with my assessment. The anomaly is too dangerous to be allowed to operate freely. It is a biological and cultural pathogen. They have ordered it to be placed in permanent quarantine for comprehensive study." Permanent quarantine. Comprehensive study. We both knew what that meant. Dissection. My blood ran cold. The two guards moved towards me. I took a step back, my mind racing. There was nowhere to run. "You can't," Ka said, her voice trembling. "This is a violation of... This is the will of the Council," Zix interrupted, a cruel smile playing on his lips. "A will you would have done well to obey. Guards, secure the specimen." But as the guards reached for me, Ka did something I never thought possible. She moved. Faster than I could track, she placed herself between me and the guards, her arms spread wide. Her entire body erupted in a blinding flash of white-hot light, a raw, untamed display of bioluminescence that made the entire lab flare. It was not a pattern. It was a weapon. A deafening shriek of pure energy filled the air, forcing everyone, including Zix, to shield their eyes. "You will not touch him!" Ka's real voice roared, amplified by some unseen technology, echoing with a power and fury that shook the very foundations of the room. The guards were thrown back, not by a physical force, but by the sheer intensity of the light and sound. Zix stared, momentarily stunned, his crimson glow flickering in the face of her incandescent rage. In that moment, she was no longer a scientist. She was a warrior, a protector. She had made her choice. She turned to me, the brilliant light softening just enough for me to see the desperate urgency in her eyes. "Jasper, the conduit," she said, her voice a strained whisper. "Install it now!" The spell was broken. Adrenaline surged through me. I grabbed the new power conduit and lunged for the teleporter, my hands flying across the control panel. Behind me, I could hear Zix recovering, shouting orders. Alarms began to blare throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, casting everything in a hellish glow. Ka stood her ground, a lone beacon of sapphire and white against the encroaching crimson of Zix and his guards. She was buying me time, putting her own life, her career, her entire existence on the line for me. The conduit clicked into place. I frantically rerouted power, my fingers a blur as I entered the boot-up sequence. The machine hummed to life, a low thrum that grew into a powerful roar. "It's working!" I yelled over the din. "Ka, let's go!" Zix and the guards were advancing on her now, their own bioluminescent patterns flashing with aggression. Ka held them off with another pulse of light, but I could see it was weakening her. She was expending massive amounts of energy. Just as the teleporter's targeting screen flickered to life, a familiar voice cut through the chaos. Not from the lab, but from the machine itself. Jasper? Can you hear me? Jasper, thank God. We have a lock. We're tracking your signal. We can bring you home. It was Dr. Patel. It was Earth, my way out. My old life calling to me from across the galaxy. Zix paused, his head tilting at the voice emanating from my machine. He saw his ultimate victory. Not only would he get his specimen, but he would capture the source of the signal, a direct link to a whole new world to exploit. Ka looked back at me, her expression torn. She heard it too. My salvation. And our end. "Go, Jasper," she urged, her voice laced with pain. "Your people have found you. Go home." Home. The word felt hollow. My home was a world away. But the woman I loved was here, about to be overwhelmed by the monsters I had brought into her life. I looked at the stable coordinates for Earth locked on the screen. Then I looked at Ka, holding back the tide, her light beginning to flicker. There was no choice. Not really. My fingers flew across the keyboard again, deleting the Earth coordinates. I manually overrode the system, inputting a random command. A destination blind jump to anywhere on this planet. A one-way trip to the unknown. "It's not home without you!" I shouted. I grabbed her hand, pulling her back from the guards just as they lunged. Her eyes widened in shock as she realized what I had done. "What are you doing?" "A leap of faith," I yelled, pulling her with me onto the teleportation pad. Zix's face contorted in a mask of pure rage as he saw us on the pad, the machine whining about to discharge. He fired a weapon, a bolt of crimson energy screaming towards us. But it was too late. I hit the activation button. The world dissolved into that same blinding, soul-searing white light. But this time I wasn't alone. Her hand was locked in mine, a solid, real anchor in the chaotic storm of quantum space. And as we were unmade and remade, I knew I had made the right choice. I had chosen a new home, a new life, a new future, with her. The world we rematerialized into was a symphony of green and gold. We stumbled off the teleportation pad, which had appeared with a ground-shaking thud in the middle of a colossal, luminous forest. The air was thick with the scent of unknown blossoms and rich, damp earth. Gigantic trees, their bark laced with phosphorescent fungi, towered over us, their canopies creating a stained glass ceiling of emerald leaves against the backdrop of Zorgon 9's twin moons. We had escaped. We were alive. Ka collapsed to her knees, her bioluminescence flickering weakly, the exertion of her fight having drained her completely. I rushed to her side, helping her sit up against the base of one of the giant trees. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice filled with concern. She looked at me, her amethyst eyes shimmering in the moonlight. Her patterns were a faint, exhausted pulse of pale blue. You destroyed your only way home," she whispered, her real voice soft and melodic without the translator. I realized I could understand her. Not the words, but the intent, the emotion behind them. Our bond had somehow transcended language. "I told you," I said, gently taking her hand. "It's not home without you." A single crystalline tear traced a path down her twilight blue cheek. Her patterns swirled with a mixture of disbelief, relief, and an emotion so profound it made my heart ache. It was love, pure and unquantifiable. In the months that followed, we built a new life for ourselves in that hidden forest. We were Adam and Eve in an alien Eden. I, with my knowledge of survival and engineering, and she, with her intimate understanding of this world's biology, were a perfect team. We learned to live off the land, to identify edible plants and fruits, and to build a shelter within the living roots of a massive tree. We learned to speak without the need for a translator, our conversations a unique blend of English, Zorgonian, and a shared language of touch and light. Her bioluminescence became our primary form of communication, her skin a canvas for every thought, every feeling, every dream. I learned to read the subtle shifts in her light like poetry, from the bright, joyful flare of silver when I made her laugh, to the deep, warm cobalt of contentment when we would sit and watch the twin moons rise. In turn, she became fascinated by the nuances of human emotion, by the illogical, messy, beautiful chaos of love, a concept she now understood not as a scientific theory, but as a living, breathing reality. One evening, as we sat by a stream, whose waters glowed with bioluminescent algae, a small probe disguised as a native insect landed silently beside us. It projected a holographic image of one of Ka's former colleagues, a young Zorgonian scientist who had always been kind to me. "Ka," the hologram whispered. "We thought you were dead. Zix claimed you were vaporized along with the contaminant. But some of us didn't believe him. He explained that Ka's defiance had sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Zix's tyrannical control was being questioned. A quiet revolution was brewing, one that valued compassion and interspecies understanding over cold, detached data. They were searching for her, not to punish her, but to ask her to lead them." Ka looked at me, her patterns swirling with uncertainty. Her people needed her, but our life here, this perfect, peaceful existence, was everything we had fought for. "It's your choice," I said softly, squeezing her hand. "Whatever you decide, we face it together." She leaned her head on my shoulder, her light a soft, thoughtful gold. "I believe," she said, her voice filled with a newfound strength, "that our work is not yet finished. It is time for a new kind of experiment, to see if two worlds can learn to coexist, not just in a hidden forest, but out in the light. The path ahead would be challenging, filled with political strife and the difficult work of changing hearts and minds. But as I looked at the incredible woman by my side, her skin glowing with love and courage, I knew we were ready. Our love story had begun with a malfunction, a scientific anomaly that defied all logic. And now, it was about to become the foundation for a new age, a bridge between two stars. We were no longer just a scientist and her subject. We were pioneers. We were a family. And our grand experiment was only just beginning. If you believe love can bridge any distance, even across galaxies, then prove it by hitting that subscribe button and joining our crew for more stories that defy the limits of the universe. The greatest discoveries are always waiting for us, just one leap of faith away. What do you think is the first thing Jasper should teach the Zorgonians about Earth? Let us know your most creative ideas in the comments below, and until next time, keep exploring.